Alright, Guardian Druid has received some changes. Not sure why the fuck I'm T-posing it up, but we're gonna talk about Guardian Druid today. We are officially in the Phase 4 of Alpha. So we are in the 4th of the 5th week. Chances are, after the 5th week, so after next week, servers will probably go down, and Beta should soon follow. Beta is when we're mostly going to see a lot of the tuning happening. Alpha, from what it feels like, is they're really trying to get the class identity and a lot of these talents implemented so that they're working relatively appropriately, even though there are some bugs, which I'll talk about in this video, specifically for Guardian Druid. In this phase, they have implemented the new hero talents, part of your hero talent, like kind of like sub-specialization, and I'm going to go over those in this video, talk about how they interact, my overall thoughts. I'm going to be a little biased in this video because I think Guardian Druid overall is generally a boring tank to play, and some of the talents are a little underwhelming. So let's start off with Druid of the Claw. Now, Druid of the Claw has a pretty massive overhaul, or at least that's what we're kind of seeing here. They are reworking some of the talents, they're adding the new additional talents, and they've also actually shifted some of the talents in the tree. So first things first, we have Limb from Limb. Your auto attacks are 30% more likely to make your next Ferocious Bite and or Maul become Ravage. Obviously, we are a Guardian Druid, so it is Maul. We also have Twin Claw, which gives us an 18% chance to follow up our next single target ability, aka Mangle or Maul, with a Twin Claw, dealing high fizz damage and generating 5 Rage. It's fine, Rage Gen, it's good. And we have Exasperating Wounds. Your Dreadful Wounds increases the damage of afflicted targets by 15% of like your bleed damage. So basically 50% damage amp on your bleed damage after you cast Ravage, and the extension of said debuff. Now, it's important for context before I showcase these, some of the other changes that they've made. So Strike for the Heart and Tear Down the Mighty, this is a choice node in the current tree. These have been reworked. So for Guardian Druid, what this does is it increases its Mangle damage by 20%, increases its crit chance by 10%, and it's going to heal you for 5% of your max health every time you cast Mangle. This has some kind of cool interactions with the reworked Mangle talent in our actual spec tree, but I'll maybe hint on or talk about that later. And then we have Tear Down the Mighty. Guardian Druid, this is reducing Sundering Roar by 15 seconds, so a 25% reduction on a fairly kind of not that great cooldown. Again, tuning numbers will ultimately change, but currently Sundering Roar is like nothing super impressive. We also have Claw Rampage. This has been updated. The chance for various attacks to trigger Ravage has been reduced by 20%, from 25 down to 20. So this is the capstone. It's kind of weird. Actually, you know what? Let me finish talking about these notes before I go on some crazy rants. Ravage has been updated. Your auto attacks are 15% more likely to make your next attack Ravage. And then they've increased Empowered Shapeshifting, and they actually changed the spot of Ruthless Aggression and Killing Strikes. So the 3 new talents are located, well, you have 2 on the right side, the kind of the first one and the third one in this tree. And then this Killing Strikes and Ruthless Aggression has traded with the other new talent, Exasperating Wounds. So right off the bat, I want to mention that I don't like this kind of style of changes, this similar criticism of the Protection Warrior, so I think it's fair here. When you take something away and then repackage it as something new, it's not new. So what they're doing is they're reducing your chance to proc Ravage, and then they're giving you an increase in a new talent, a second talent choice, to increase the proc of Ravage. And so it feels bad because now during your incarn, you're going to have less Ravage procs because of the nerf to Claw Rampage, but you have an increased chance from your auto attacks, which is just RNG. It's haste dependent. It requires, obviously, to be in melee range at all times. They're just not a fan. This is the kind of the first glaring issue when they nerf a talent and then add it again. It's same thing with Protection Warrior. They nerfed Anger Management, and they got rid of the Avatar Capstones, and then they baked it into the Mountain Thane tree. It's the same criticism I'm going to have. Take this how you will. Overall, I think the changes to this tree, though, are not super exciting. You now have, give or take, like an 18.5% chance on your auto attacks to proc Ravage. I've actually gone on streaks of like 10 auto attacks in a row without proccing it, though, which feels kind of bad. The increased bleed effect. Bleeds don't do a lot of damage as it currently stands. Now, again, want to be very clear, it is still alpha. They are very far away from any kind of tuning. I don't know if we know the Guardian Druid tier set, but assuming that we just don't know the tier set, we don't know what that could have. It could have some interesting synergies. Chances are it won't, but there's information we still don't know. And then last but not least, Mangle and Maul/Raise have a chance to just deal more damage and generate you rage, which is kind of nice. It's like a little refund. Twin Claw is probably the most interesting talent of the 3 that are added, and the changes to Strike from the Heart or Strike for the Heart and Tear Down the Mighty, it's kind of like your single target versus AoE node that you might change based on the encounter, but that's pretty much it. So and just in case you don't know what Sundering Roar is, because I did make a video about it, but it is a new talent. You roar with earth-shattering ferocity, dealing physical damage up front, resetting the cooldown on Thrash, and allowing it to stack 5 additional times. So if you're playing something like Rend and Tear and something like Flashing Claws, actually more or less Flashing Claws, I just don't know why I even brought the other talent, it can stack up to 10 times total, which is good. If you're not playing this, it'll stack up to 8 times. When this debuff expires, the Sundering Roar debuff after 12 seconds, the excess stacks will get consumed immediately, dealing their remaining damage. So it's like a small little burst cooldown. So if you play Tear Down the Mighty, it's now able to be used every 45 seconds instead of every minute. It's fine. It's like a little bit of AoE damage. Presumably, as of right now, it seems uncapped. It doesn't say that it's going to do reduced damage beyond 8 targets, so this could actually be very, very good in like sizable pulls. But yeah, outside of that, nothing really interesting. This is your rotation, your 5-button rotation. You have your cooldowns here, and like you have Moonfire to pull stuff, and, you know, maybe to optimize single target, if that's even a thing anymore. It used to be back in the day where you had to like apply Moonfire in its pandemic window and single target specifically. And anyways, you're gonna come in here and just hit buttons. You can Ravage, cool. Now we have our Dreadful Wound, so now our bleeds are dealing 15% more damage to the targets. And yeah, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna actually get Thrash up to a 5 stacks. You know what would be nice? If they made Sundering Roar off the global cooldown, because it resets Thrash, but like in Incarn, it's like already only 2 globals anyways in between Thrash casts. So it doesn't really make sense to have it during, like you would never use it during Incarn. You'd probably use it right before Incarn. But as we can see here, I'm going to go up to 10 stacks, and then you want to refresh right before it expires. But then you can see here in the combat log, the Dreadful or the Sundering Roar actually did pretty sizable damage. It hit for 8k, 4k, 8k, 4k. And then if we scroll up, I actually might be a little too far up, but basically you deal damage immediately, and then you deal damage after 12 seconds. Besides that, nothing's really changing about Druid of the Claw. It's still kind of I think thematically it looks better. I think personally, things like Raise and Ravage just feel more like the classic Guardian Druid bear who's just like bleeding their targets to death. I think Waking Nightmare replicating your Thrashes also feels kind of cool. I know people think it's bland and kind of boring. I like it. I think it's cool. Little passive images of yourself that will replicate your Thrash casts, I think are fine. I prefer this over Elune's Chosen, but that's it. Nothing crazy. If I missed anything about this Fizdam bear, let me know in the comments below. But overall, my criticism is like, I don't like repackaged things where they kind of take stuff away and then they give it back to us like, oh, here's new stuff. And it's like, well, to me, it feels like you ran out of time or you didn't have really any ideas. That's how I take it. That's how I look at it. That's just my opinion. Anyways, let's take a look at the Lunar Bear, because I think most people will. I think people who like the Elune's Chosen Guardian Druid playstyle will enjoy the new talents that were added. It's not for me, but still cool. Taking a look over at the WoWhead article. So these were all added on the right-hand side. There's no talent moving, relocating, anything like that. We have Star Cascade, which has Thrash having a 50% chance to launch a Star Surge at 120% effectiveness. We have Numbral Swell, which Lunar Beam increases arcane damage you deal by 10% while it's active. So now you have like a 10% damage app during Lunar Beam. It's cool. And then you have more single target damage with Bask in Moonlight. Maul/Raise damage increased by 10%. Fine. Lunar Beam's damage dealt to its primary target increased by 30%. Now this is currently bugged. It is not working. That's fine. In theory, it's pretty easy to be like, wow, a little bit more single target damage with this. It's fine. I think that's where Elune's Chosen kind of falls short. Elune's Chosen single target damage currently and historically has just been bad. It's just, it doesn't compare to what Druid of the Claw can do. So the Star Cascade is the most interesting part of this tree. When you'll randomly thrash, and maybe I can get it to proc. It's 50%, so it happens fairly often. You're going to notice I'm going to shoot out a Star Surge. This Star Surge, as you can see here, does like 4,000 damage. It's not bad. What's also interesting about this is if you are running specifically the talent Lunation, your arcane abilities reduce the cooldown of Lunar Beam by 3 seconds. And so when we use Lunar Beam here, and we like Moonfire, you're going to see it's reduced by 3 seconds. It's going to go down to 50. Then it's going to go down to 45, and then 41. And that's just me spamming Moonfire. Now, Thrash also reduces it by 3 seconds. But when we inevitably get a Star Surge proc, it's also going to lower the cooldown by an additional 3 seconds. So hopefully we get it here. It should knock it down to like 4. Bam, 4 seconds. And so you're going to get more cooldown reduction on your Lunar Beam, which is the whole gameplay loop for Elune's Chosen, right? You want Lunar Beam down, gives you mastery, does a good bit of damage. It increases the damage you're dealing, both through things like exposure. Also, now it's going to increase your damage through Numbral Swell. All good stuff. Generally speaking, I think this is looking a little better than Druid of the Claw. Even though I like Druid of the Claw historically, and more thematically, I think Elune's Chosen just is going to feel better to play, even though it might be a little bit more boring. So yeah, those are the changes. Again, it's still alpha. A lot of tuning can happen. And like we saw with Prot Warrior this week, they can still make some pretty aggressive talent adjustments if they feel like there's enough outcry about anything that's happening. Now, again, I'm not a Guardian Druid player. I'm not a main. I played very casually. I used to main it way back in the day, but that's way in the past. So yeah, I don't really know where to end this. I think it's fine. I think Guardian Druid is in like an okay place. We'll do a future update, probably more during the beta testing. When things start getting tuned, we have tier sets, we can actually test endgame content. So yeah, keep an eye out for those changes, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.